Hello, folks. Welcome to the Night's Watch. I'm Jacob.
I'm Alex.
And we are in the doldrums once more, continuing into the off season. It is hot. But I will say we're getting a little closer. We're hitting that. We're past the halfway point, I think.
Past the halfway point where you've got about 70 days even, I think, something like that.
Don't put a number on it, please. We're not close enough for the number to be comforting.
But it's getting closer. I mean, camp's coming up in September. We're a week out from August.
Once you're in August, you can say to yourself, "Hey, I'll be watching preseason games next month."
Yeah. We'll be a month away from the preseason. Even though there'll be a lot of not starting players playing, at least there'll be hockey.
Trust me, every year I give zero shits
it's
about
hockey.
who's actually playing. I just want to watch them.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Can't wait for it's gonna be soon.
I just want to hear Dave Gosher's soothing tones.
Yeah, it's gonna be sooner than you think. It goes by pretty quick, and then once camp starts back up, all the the news and where players are at.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. In the meantime, I know kind of the discussion is where we stand as a team. How do we get better? We talked about a few episodes ago, our feelings on the current lineup. I think we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago. We're feeling a little bit more optimistic as we go on.
Couple of Victor Olofsson highlight videos kind of maybe.
Yeah, and we were talking about
hope.
that. Yeah, whereas the Holtz one was kind of hard to find because those were coming in garbage time. And he was in the AHL, whereas Victor Olofsson's highlights are just absolutely disgusting. His shots are just nasty.
Snipes.
So I think that's going to be a good body to have. I think he will probably end up playing again, depending on a camp, probably playing up with Eichel.
And the contracts that those guys are on,
the
value
sweetheart
it
deals,
represents. Yeah. I think I sent it to you. It was, I forgot the name of the website, but it was a pretty deep dive on our roster with analytics included, and what they presented and what I agree with was hey, our real off season was the trade deadline.
Yes, yeah, I think that's something we talked about previously. Maybe not on this podcast, at least together. We said
Hanifin and Hurdle
was
our off.
That was our season. These two moves were the moves that we were going to make, and that was it
to solidify our core for the rest of our window.
Yeah, and we may not have made it past the first round of the playoffs this last season, but those two moves put you in a great position to move forward.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah,
Hanifin signed an extension. Hurdle's got term.
Yep. And then plus, if you had to trade the Hurdle deal, he's only getting paid $6 million. Not someone will take that with the cap going up, but I don't foresee us doing that. You got to get the guy a full year to be, with the team to get acclimated.
Yeah.
He was
I'm
unfair.
optimistic.
Yeah, he only played 2 weeks with the team before going straight into Dallas. I'm optimistic with his contract. Plus, you've got younger guys ready to prove themselves with Holtz and Dorofiev, and then a guy that's been kind of he's 28, 29, but a guy that's been kind of pushed to the wayside in Olofsson and Buffalo.
If there's one aspect of our front office that I really trust, it's our pro scouting team.
I mean, a pro scouting team brought us Stone. I mean, you could say that because he's already pretty good. But Stone, Eichel,
the big one,
Petro, Chandler Stevenson.
He was a fourth line winger when he was in Washington, and then he was our first line center for a while.
Barbashev is our first line
deep runs, and then a second line center for the cup run.
Yeah, Barbashev is a first line winger now. Guys like I don't know if our pro scouts are the same as they were when we first started the draft, but McNabb and Theodore and Haig and White Cloud.
This team has a history of identifying talent.
Yeah, and I think they
know, and not just talent, but talent that works with what we're building.
Yeah, and they know these two guys very well because they've seen them so much. And Hanifin and Hurdle, I'm not afraid to say that I think those are good deals, and hopefully they'll pan out well. I know the Hanifin deal will probably be much better, and then the Hurdle, we'll see. A
little risk only because of the injury, but honestly,
guys have knee injuries like that often.
The narrative around Hurdle before we got him, it wasn't that, well, he's injured, so no one's going to get him because he's injured. It was, he's signed long-term in San Jose, and San Jose wants to have some...
Yeah, why would San Jose trade that away?
There was never any indication that he was available, and to me, it didn't really have anything to do with injury history. Guys get injured, it happens.
I think he was made available only because of wait, what? We're not going to rebuild around Tomas Hurdle. He's 30, 31.
Exactly. I think it was just Mike Greer saying this guy, because that was a contract signed by the previous GM. And I think Mike Rear was like, yeah, sorry, Tomasz, we love you, but your age totally does not match what we're projecting.
We've got Will Smith, and we're gonna draft Macklin Celebrini.
Mhm.
Like, we've got guys in the pipeline that we're gonna build around. Like, you're just not in our future.
Exactly,
and that's perfectly fine.
So why not get a first round pick out of it?
And we benefited it. Yeah. But going to that, I do think, it's hard to kind of gauge this team right now to where if their moves will be made. Everybody says, oh, Vegas is going to make a big move. I'm like, but do they have to? I mean, that defense is still solid. The goaltending is good. Forwards, maybe you make a move for a depth player or you sign somebody, but even then, do you even have to do that, though?
I feel like we've already plugged the holes.
Yeah, because
maybe not with the splashiest pieces, but we got some bargain contracts, and put it to you this way: we're close to the cap. Mm-hmm. We got a full roster.
Yeah, here's the thing: we knew Stevenson was going to be gone. We knew Carrier was going to be gone. Mm-hmm. We knew Amadio was going to be gone, and obviously, can't count Anthony Mantha. He was going to be gone. That wasn't even something worth it.
We knew Martinez was going to be gone.
Yeah, Martinez was going to be gone. Whether he retired or we didn't resign him, he was going to be gone. The big factor was Marshy. Yeah, it was Marchessault. But you replace Marchessault. Yeah, you say it's with two players, but you replace Marchessault with two goal scorers in. I know
scoring wingers.
Yeah, I know Holtz hasn't lived up to it yet, but he's still only 22, very young, and this is kind of his make it or break it season.
Agreed. He has that high upside.
Whereas Olofsson has scored over 20, except for one season, and that was last season when he was injured and being played in the bottom six for some reason.
Let's not forget that both these players, they came from not great teams. I know,
not great coaches.
I know New Jersey. They made the playoffs, and everyone decided that they were Cup favorites, even though
everybody forgot that Lindy Ruff was their head coach.
I'll say more so than that. Everyone forgot that they had no defensemen and no goaltending, and
then a bunch of children.
Yeah, it was like, oh yeah, Jack Hughes and his merry men are gonna.
Jack Hughes and his band of teenagers
they're gonna beat Boston. They're gonna beat Florida. They're gonna beat Tampa.
I think. I think that team will be good.
Rangers, and I do too. I'm not being a hater. I'm just stating the fact
that where he came from. Yeah, he was playing in a bottom six role with Eric Holla, and he's on a bottom six player.
I think
we're not even a bottom six player, like we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Well, that's where our center depth comes in, because even guys that are on our quote unquote bottom six, like
our top pair. If
you're playing with Karlsson, you'll be just fine.
Yeah, and if Holtz is playing with Karlsson, he'll probably also be playing with either, I would assume, Dorofiev or Howden. I think Holtz will be okay, and the same with Olofsson. But that kind of leads me into like some UFAs I was writing down that we could possibly go after. I mean, we just kind of stated our first option, none. There's not a glaring hole in this lineup that you could plug up. I mean, like we said, most of these positions are spoken for. If a player does, say for example, if like one of Olofsson, Holtz, or Dorofiev don't perform well in camp and Brisson does, you plug in Brisson. Or, if you feel like one of those three guys can't play bottom six role well, you plug in Ronbjerg.
And there's nothing wrong with adding depth, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's always been our strength. This is the first time in a while we've kind of been lacking in it.
A guy that signed that we were talking about was Daniel Sprong. He signed with Vancouver for, again, under $1 million.
He was the one that I really wanted.
Yeah.
But even then, like, when he got signed by Vancouver, like, I wasn't too broken up about it, because I was like, we kind of have, again, we've already signed enough high-scoring wingers with defensive problems.
Yeah, we don't want to add a third.
You don't need more of the same ilk.
Yeah. I was looking at a couple of names on forwards. Was Tyler Johnson was one for Chicago. He's got a decent two-way game. He played pretty well in Chicago. I mean, his minus is terrible, but he was in Chicago.
Do you have his stats?
Okay, here we go. I got Tyler Johnson's stats right here. So in his last few years in Chicago, he was a pretty big minus, but
I'll say, man, you were not joking.
But he was playing more games, and I think he was playing higher minutes. Like, if you look at his minutes, they kind of increased like a 16 and 15 minute. He was playing more than most on that team, but those rookies were probably insulated a lot. So in his first year in Chicago, He played only 26 games, had 7 points, was a -8. But then his second year, he played 56 games, had 32 points, -21. But again, the team was terrible. And then last year, he played 67 games, had 31 points, was a -35.
Jesus,
that's pretty rough. I mean, but
it was also the 2024 Chicago Blackhawks.
They were literally picked number 2, and the year before that, they were picked number 1.
Yeah, so they've been dog shit for a while.
Yeah, so in his defense, it wasn't terrible. All right, it's terrible, but like the team he was on was terrible. And he played more minutes. He had 17 goals and then 12 goals the year before, so he's got some good goals. He's a good setup guy. He's got 20 and 14. Again, we don't need them to be world beaters. We just need them to be depth.
Yeah, I can see this. I can see him being a depth pickup.
Again, entirely depending on what he wants. He's still on the market, so I'm guessing no one's going to want to pay him that much. So if anything, he might be a PTO.
I can see that.
And then just sign him to a league minimum deal.
If that doesn't work, off to Russia he goes.
Off to Russia or something. But then another name I have, speaking of Russia, Alexander Barabanov. He played for San Jose his entire career, aside from 1 year in Toronto. He also has a pretty rough plus minus, but he was on like a bottom 6 role, and he was playing a good amount of minutes too. If you look at these minutes over the last few years, he was over 15 minutes every year, which is kind of tells me that they set him out for a good amount of minutes. So in 2021, 2022, played 70 games, had 39 points, was only a -5. Not too bad there. 2022, 2023, 68 games, he had 47 points, was a -30, but again, this is the Sharks. They were
again,
terrible.
He was on the 2023 San Jose Sharks.
He had
awful. Eric Carlson on his team, bro.
Yeah, he played 18 minutes.
How are you supposed to defend with Eric Carlson on your decor?
And 47 points in 68 games is pretty good. With 15 goals. Last year he didn't have as great of a year, but again, that team was also terrible.
I mean, they got Macklin Celebrini.
So 46 games
you don't
played.
get Macklin Celebrini by being great and keeping the puck out of your net.
46 game played. He only played half a season. 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points. So not a great year last year. There's a reason why he didn't get re-signed, but I do believe this guy does have something in him. You can see his shots were halved. So obviously they were prioritizing other players over him.
The last 3 years, shots 103,
120, and then dropped to 67. I mean, he was injured, but
look at that drop in his ice time too.
Exactly. So obviously, they kind of took minutes away from him to prioritize, other players. I think he's another good depth kind of guy, depth forward. One guy I saw that was very surprised in not being signed anywhere is Oliver Gillington. I know he was injured for the last couple of years.
He was injured. Then I think he had he was in the player assistance program.
He was
not for like addiction or anything. I think he had like some
mental health or like a Spencer Knight situation or like a Patrick Laine where he's like, hey, I need some help, like handling these things, which is fine.
I think it's pretty valid in those playing a high pressure.
Yeah. Job. And he's still very young. He's still only 25, 26 years old. In the last, since he came in, 2015, looks like he played a couple of games. So let's see, most games he played. So 18-19, he was only 21. He played 38 games, had 8 points, but plus of 3, which tells me he's pretty decent on defense. The year after that, 48 games, 7 and a -6. So that was a COVID year, though. I don't put that on him.
Well, then you have to remember that Calgary just alternated being great and being terrible for like 5 years.
And then in 2020, 2021, he only played 8 games. He was injured for most of that year, and he was a -1, so I don't really count that for him. His best year, 21-22, is 24 season. He played 73 games, had 9 goals, 22 assists, 31 points, a +34.
Wow.
That is a very impressive year and very impressive numbers for such a young defenseman. And then this year he only played 33 games, or he had a year off because he was injured. I think he tore something or something happened with his lower body. This year he played 33 games, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points, was a -6. Again, that team was bad, but to be a -6 in 33 games with a bad team like that is not terrible.
Yeah.
In the year that he had his highest point total and highest everything. He had over 18 minutes a night. He's a guy that could really fill an offensive defenseman role if we don't have it, or a guy that you could bring in as, hey, again, you could bring him as a PTO, sign him, maybe he's in AHL and bring him up if you need to.
Well, I was going to say, of all these three guys that we looked at, I think Shillington...
This is the most interesting.
It's the most interesting in that he's probably the best player out of all of them.
Yep.
But it's in a position that we
are very deep in.
Don't need to add in.
But if you're Vegas and you're built on defense, the guy is 6 foot even, 185. So he's a little bit like he's an average size, but he's like a third offensive defenseman you don't have. But does his kind of lack in defensive ability make up for signing him to a league minimum deal?
I'll say that as good as he is, I just don't think if he's willing to play in Henderson, he could be good for Henderson. Mm-hmm. But
plus we have eight NHL defensemen. That's
exactly
the hard part. Where do you put them?
Our starting six defensemen are already stacked.
Starting 8.
And then
not starting 8, but starting 6 plus the 2.
That's exactly. And then we have Ben Hutton and Caden Korczak, and I'm sure Korczak's going to be flip flopping with like White Cloud and so on for the rest of the year. So basically, he would not play for the Golden Knights.
Yeah, and that's the hard part.
There would have to be some pretty catastrophic injuries, which we don't seem to ever be able to avoid. So. But it would basically be a guarantee that like you're playing in Henderson.
And that's the sad part for Shillington is he's so talented. You can say he had one great year, but really he had some good. He's young. He's still very young.
And even if he did play in Henderson, it's like, well, sorry, but our priority is developing Cormier and Chayka.
Yeah, exactly. Are we going to spend time developing you? We saw.
I think he's past the point. He's 27. So
yeah, we saw with a kind of middle, not age, but like the middle 20s player in Miramanov and Pakal both get put on Calgary. Mm-hmm. Pakal got waived to make room for those guys coming back, and then Miramanov got traded for Hanifin. So once you kind of hit those mid-20s,
On that note, despite having those guys, we weren't afraid to. Claim Bjornfoot on waivers.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to it's always about depth. And again, unless he's the type to make a stink about playing in the AHL, I wouldn't mind picking him up at all.
No, not at all.
Because
I'm very surprised.
You're 2 injuries away from being in the league. So.
I'm very surprised a team like Edmonton hasn't even looked at him, even just to be a bottom 6.
Because
that defense isn't good, and he could at least give you something. Edmonton, Vancouver, unless they see something in this guy that's like I'm not seeing, that's like something's wrong with him or something's not good. But
I'm not a scout, but I think honestly, what Spook's team,
the injury history and then the drop off,
the injury history, and then the mental health issues.
Which is a shame because he's a good player.
Because it wasn't just being in a player assistance program. I think like he came back and then it just always seems shaky with him.
Yeah, but in his defense, it's fucking Calgary and like we talked about with Toronto players. Like, how do you have a mental health?
How do you have good Canada? Mental health in a Canadian team?
I mean, look at Markstrom. He's like, get me out of here. Yeah. And he's in New Jersey now, where he can go have fun in those swamps and shit.
Yep.
So that's kind of like my list of free agents that are out. Do you have any, other than these few? Like,
there's just really no one available. This was kind of a free agency where it really just ended the day of.
Yeah, ending on day 1, like you said, and then it just went so fast.
Yeah, it was like not even just like day 1. It was like the first 3 hours of day 1.
3 to 5 hours. Like by the time it was lunchtime on the West Coast, everybody was signed. We're like, holy shit, what happened?
I mean,
I didn't even work that day because I was moving so fast.
Yeah, put it to you this way. I mean, Daniel Sprong was the big guy on my list for a while, and he's a guy that's been getting work on PTOs for 2 or 3 years.
It's just his scoring. So there's a few. I mean, there's not really guys that tier like JVR, he's old. He didn't have a good year last year.
35.
We don't need defensemen. Tyler Johnson, we talked about.
I'm a little shocked. Justin Schultz is on side.
Justin Schultz, Kevin Shattenkirk, Mike Hoffman.
He's done.
Really fallen off. Max Pacioretty.
Health risk. And
yeah.
Even when he came back to the Caps, he wasn't himself.
He's also our friend Alan Walsh,
he'll never
agent.
Never play here again. So
Kyle Luckpost was probably going to retire.
I agree.
Blake Wheeler might retire, 37. Cal Clutterbuck is going to retire.
Silverberg retire?
He retired or he retired from Anaheim.
Because he went back home, didn't he?
Yep, exactly. We're not going to mention this Michael McLeod. Nope. He is never going to play. Doesn't deserve to play hockey again. Andrew Cogliano is 30. He retired. He did retire. Yep. Kalen Addison.
Petey needs to fix that shit, man.
Kalen Addison's a name. We talked about it. Surprised it hasn't been resigned, but I think there's been like some character issues that has been brought up.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm not surprised that he hasn't been resigned because, when you first heard about this guy, I'm like, oh, he's like this young up-and-coming defenseman in Minnesota. I'm like, that's great. It's exactly what you need. And then, you start seeing like, oh, he's getting scratched. He's reduced ice time.
Supplanted by Faber, but he's
also... And naturally, I don't know why, but like hockey fans, they love to like really rally around young players. Like, well, the evil coach wouldn't give him any ice time. It's the coach's fault.
Yeah, that's why like Cassidy was vilified a lot.
Oh yeah, because he didn't give Jake DeBrusk ice time, Alex.
Even though DeBrusk got scratched and now season. No longer in Boston, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so naturally it always falls on the coach. Why is Dean Evason scratching? This kid's a stud. Why would you even do that? Well, then he gets traded to San Jose. You're like, okay, so San Jose, he'll have plenty of ice time. Had a few good
games, yeah.
But then, as I recall, he got scratched pretty quick in San Jose. So
something's up with him.
Yeah, frankly, not interested in this kid.
Kyler Yamamoto is a good, I would say, like bottom six kind of just.
Well, that's the thing. Because there was a time, if you had asked me this time last year, I would have said, yeah, that's a good depth piece. But he went to Seattle, who was not good, and he was still struggling to stay on that fourth line.
Very true.
And did not really do much of anything.
Yeah. I mean, there's other names. Dominic Kubalik is also scoring only, doesn't do anything else. Hasn't really proven himself. Nick Cousins, we already tried that one. Alex
Still don't want you, cuz. Still don't want you.
Alex Nylander has been bounced around teams.
Well, he did score a hat trick against us.
That's true.
So, I don't know. Maybe there's something there.
We talked about Barabanov. Boris Tkachuk is actually like a good bottom six guy. He was on Tampa Bay, I think, when they won a cup or two, and then got traded to Ottawa. But again, these names, you're reaching in the barrel for like Chris Tierney, Zach Parise, who should retire, 39.
Hey, do you want Tony DeAngelo?
Oh, God, no. I'd rather shoot myself.
Want Kevin LeBlanc?
Kevin LeBlanc won.
Jared Tenorti?
Hey, Kevin LeBlanc's only 28, but he was bad. Yeah, there's not a lot of names here anymore. I mean, like we said, it was gone pretty quickly after day one. I did look at some trades maybe we can make in next year or even this offseason. A couple of these names are probably going to be more of how bad the players are going to be. I'll go in probably order of likelihood for me.
Okay.
Even if it's an off-season thing. Mikael Granlund.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he's got 1 year left on his contract. He's not going to be a guy they build around in San Jose.
Oh, no.
He's
how old is he?
Mikael Granlund's in his like late 20s, early 30s. But a good depth forward. Kind of go with that classic outside of Jack Eichel. With that classic
I
trade.
did have him starting on my Four Nations roster. So.
Yeah, and so did I. He's a good player. I think that's a name that I've kind of looked at a lot. Just looking at comparing the contract and when we can trade for him. I think now is the year. If the organization actually wanted him, he'd be the guy to kind of go after as like a good depth forward. I also have Jordan Greenway.
I don't know.
He's up. Yeah, he's got 1 year left in Buffalo. We all know Jordan Greenway pretty well from Minnesota series. He's a monster.
He was a prick to play against.
That line of was it Greenway, Foligno, and
I don't know,
Eriksson Ek or something like that.
I don't know what line he was on, but I know
it was a nasty line.
He was part of that identity that just made that team so fucking difficult to play.
Oh yeah, they're just heavy, hard to play against. He's a guy that's hard to play against in general. He signed to Buffalo, I think, was a little overpaid and trying to play higher than he should be. He's a bottom 6 guy.
Yeah, but I think, to be fair, I did like that move when it happened because I was like, this is what Buffalo needs.
Yeah, and then Buffalo just did not play him well at all. Of course, that's a classic Buffalo issue.
Oh.
So, and then he just signed in Carolina. I think this is entirely dependent on what happens in Carolina. Jack Roslovic played in the Rangers. He's
intriguing.
He can be both excellent, but also just be frustratingly bad. Yeah,
I remember when they first traded for Laine, or gave him up for Laine, or
he went from
Columbus
to Winnipeg.
Okay.
No, Winnipeg to Columbus. No, wait.
No,
Columbus to Winnipeg because
Columbus got Patrick Laine back.
Yes, and then Dubois went to Winnipeg with
that was a separate deal, wasn't it?
It was they flipped.
Hang on.
Yeah, Laine and I'm pretty sure that deal was Laine and Dubois. They flipped, and I think one of those guys, I think Roslovic and somebody else, was also flipped in that deal.
Hang on, we're gonna have to.
Yeah, but that trade, it just didn't work out for anybody. At this point, all those guys are gone. I mean, Laine is still in Columbus, but he's probably going to get traded.
There was a brief moment where I was like, oh, Roslovic surprisingly looks to be the only one in this trade that's like doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And that lasted like 3 weeks, and then he fell apart.
Exactly.
And kind of hasn't done much since.
So I think it just depends on the coaching. I mean, Rod might get some more out of him than others did in Carolina, and that Carolina team's does kind of need the depth. They still haven't signed Martin Necas yet.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what's going to happen there? So we'll see. And then I think I have some kind of surprise names I have on my list. If we can pull off the Tomas Hertl deal, we can pull off these.
I feel like I'm at the point where just throw any name out there, and I could see our management doing it.
Just because he's been talked about so much as on a trade block, he wants to leave. Nikolai Ehlers.
That's intriguing.
In Winnipeg, I feel like his values slowly going down, month to month as they don't trade him. He's unhappy there. They don't play him right. He's a scorer. So he needs to go somewhere. I think that would, and then the thing that kind of handicaps us with these big names is 1, draft picks, and 2, prospects. But we also have a lot of defense prospects, a lot of defense, group, and we have goaltender prospects that some of these might prefer. And then I have Brock Besser. It's entirely dependent on what goes on in Vancouver.
Yeah, so I like anyone else, I would love to have Brock Besser on my team. I cannot fathom a world where Vancouver not only lets him go, but trades him to a divisional rival while they're in contention. Because I know we got Hertl, but
they were out of contention.
They were out of contention. Yeah. I know we got Hanifin, but they were, that was basically them saying we're rebuilding.
It's entirely dependent on what happens.
Is not rebuilding anytime soon.
And what happens with I fully see him resigning in Vancouver, especially with the cap going up. I don't see why he wouldn't, unless they really shaft him on an extension. He's getting paid only $6.65 million right now. I would assume a deal for about $4 to $5 million, north of like 8 to 8.5 for him, would be about right. And I doubt we would pay that, but they'd want.
Can I give you 2 names looking at this list that are jumping out at me? And again, these are guys that'll be up next year, and their teams might have interest in moving them. Andrei Kuzmenko, Calgary.
Yeah, signed a 1-year deal after he got traded there for Vancouver, right? He just scores. Like, he's been scoring. It's just, he'll be hot.
22 goals, 24 assists.
Yep. He'll be hot and then be cold, but
little expensive, but again, I think, when they're on those expiring deals, you might be able to get some retention in that deal.
Yeah. I totally agree. I did like him as well, and then I also like Brock Nelson. last year he had 34 points, 34 goals, 35 points, 34 goals, 35 assists, 69 points.
I was say 35 goals, only 1 assist. That's so weird.
Yeah, he was good. He was great last year. 34 goals is incredible, especially for Brock Nelson, and then that kind of not great Islanders team.
Oh yeah.
So
continually mediocre.
A name that I kind of want to throw by you. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but looking at the name, and looking at the age and what's going on at his in his team, how they're kind of going nowhere, and looking at who the agent is, Sidney Crosby.
Well, Alex, now you're just being juicy.
I know. Can
you imagine how hated the goal team would be
if we had Eichel and
if we somehow reached across the nation to Pittsburgh and yoinked Sidney Crosby to our team?
I don't think it happens. I think the guy's too loyal to his team. But
yeah, and then
he's never going to win another cup.
And even then, it's like, do we need a high end center like that?
Did we need Tomas Hertl?
Well, no, but we were obviously letting Chandler Stevenson go.
Yeah,
so
I mean, well, if we didn't make if
they're planning to let William Karlsson go, which I don't think they are, only because Crosby's much older.
Well, it'd be here's my defense is we would only make that trade if we are squarely in a contention position, and we're like, we need to get one more high end centerpiece.
You're like, fuck it, someone can play on the wing.
Yeah, exactly. And he's only going to be, his salary this year is only $3 million. And if it's only for 1 year, I don't give a shit. Like it's a 1 year, it's a playoff rental. You goddamn know well he's going to want another cup. I mean, the Penguins aren't going to make another playoff run.
No,
they're too old. They're done. They've got nothing left in them.
They're overdone. They're
overcooked. Sidney Crosby's.
They should have pulled that bird out of the oven 40 minutes ago.
If Sidney Crosby's next best chance is pulling Patrick Kane, if he wants another cup hunting for 1 to 2 year deals until he decides to hang it up. He's still elite. Last year he had 94 points in 82 games. He played all 82 games. He was disgusting.
He was like over a point a game, wasn't he? Or
well, 94 points in 82, yeah. Over a point games. He was defensively great. He did everything. He was great. We all know Sidney Crosby is one of the best hockey players of all time, but it's entirely dependent on what's going on in Pittsburgh. If they're just blind to go, oh no, we can keep going. You can't. You really can't.
They can't. I think what's going to come down to, whether it's us or Colorado or whoever,
how bad they actually are.
I think what it's going to come down to is Sid. Because Kyle Dubas isn't dumb. Like, he knew the job when he got it. And I think the job was like, hey, see if you can save this team last minute. And if you can't, can you rebuild it? And
doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Exactly. So I think it's going to be between Sid and Kyle. It's like, hey, man, it's done. We're done here.
And that's, what kind of haul can you get for Sidney Crosby?
You can either stay here. Out of respect, we'll let you stay here. Or you can go get another cup somewhere.
Yeah. It's going to be,
Let
again,
us know, we'll facilitate.
Yeah, what kind of haul can you get for Sidney Crosby? It depends on who can offer what. The bad part, though, is also the teams that are going to be contention aren't going to be able to offer a lot. You know what I mean? Like the Avalanche, if they do have a first-round pick, it's going to be late. Mm-hmm. They don't have a lot of prospects either. No. Edmonton's the same way. We're the same way. Tampa Bay is kind of in that area of like they're out.
The definition of barren cupboard.
Yeah. Florida is also getting to that point.
Oh, yeah.
New York is like, there's contenders, but there's also guys that like, oh, yeah, well, we want players, but those contenders don't have players. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, if, they want to give up Crosby, like, hey, we're going to give you him, but we want two defensive prospects we have. And we also want, a youngish depth player, which also we have. It's entirely hypothetical, but Pittsburgh is similar to Washington. Where like we're gonna try,
yeah,
but even though you shouldn't.
I feel like honestly, after this offseason, I'm like, if you ask me who has a better chance of making the playoffs, I'm like Washington.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I mean,
they
got better.
It's kind of I think they accepted their fate of like, you know what, this is what we are.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Pittsburgh's on the full downswing. I mean, Letang's getting older or is old, and he's on his way out. Karlsson's just bad. Malkin is old.
Hey,
Crosby.
That's a Norris winner right there, Alex.
Mickey Mouse trophy.
Yep.
Jari's getting older. He's Nedeljkovic.
He was never good to begin with. Let's be real.
They lost P.O. Joseph, which was one of their good young defensemen. What else is even on that team?
Yeah. Can I tell you one name that's kind of leaping out at me here? And this is going to be, again, probably dependent on what Seattle's doing or how they're feeling. Yanni Gourde.
That's a name I thought about too.
As a depth guy.
Yanni Gourde is
right now. He is in danger of being the fourth line center, which I don't think he would be very happy with.
No, because he's gonna have Stevenson and possibly right in front of him because Beniers has got 1C, Stevenson's 2.
I know we're not a Kraken podcast, but I think Stevenson is the first line center on that team.
Yeah, I mean,
call me up.
Stevenson's 1C,
homer, but
Beniers 2C, and then Wright could play up on the wing. But you also have who else is on that team? Cartier, Wright could be a center somewhere in that lineup. Gourde will be the 4th C, and like you said, I don't think Yanni Gourde is going to be content with being 4C on the Kraken. I just don't see why he would be happy with that. But yeah, I mean, Gourde could be on the 4th line center because we're looking at projected lineups. There's no way Shane Wright's playing on the 4th line center.
Exactly.
Not a chance.
I think they'll bump him to wing before they put him on the 4th.
Exactly.
What is he going to...
Yeah, exactly.
What's he going to learn there?
No, he's not going to learn anything. He's going to be at minimum as a 3rd line center. There's no way Shane Wright's not that. So yeah, I mean, for him, I don't think I'd be happy being a 4th line center there, especially if that team is still middling and doesn't, make the playoffs, or it's like in the middle of the pack. A name I have, I don't know if you're gonna like this. He just got back from player assistance for mental health. Patrick Laine.
Oh, Alex.
Here's my defense. Aside from last year, he scored over 20 goals every single year. He hasn't had a season other than his year last year where he was injured and he had his mental health issues. He's scored over 30 goals. He's a consistent goal scorer. He has consistent points. It was only increasing aside from last year. And he's also in Columbus. I don't blame him. It's Ohio.
It's Ohio, folks.
But
it's Ohio.
His value is only decreasing for the amount of time he's been out. From what I've been reading, no one's going to be willing to take on that contract without retention.
Serious retention.
But
serious retention.
You could argue that he's going to have a number of teams he's going to want to go to. It's not going to be garbage teams. He's going to want to go to a team that's going to be contending. He only went to Columbus because he wanted less pressure of Winnipeg, which I don't blame him. Again, it's Canada, it's too much pressure. Would you love to come to Vegas where there's even less pressure from the fans?
I'm not say that because we're Stanley Cup champions. We are highly scrutinized.
But the fans,
we're the villains, Alex.
The fans and the writers aren't putting there's no writers. There's plenty of fans, but there's no writers that are crucifying you on a daily basis.
Yeah,
you'd be giving up a guy probably like obviously Brisson would go back and probably Connolly, but what you get back immediately, and he's not old either. He's
not old.
It's just hard for me. Like that's the name I wrote down just because based on the goal scoring, that's something that we do need. But it's also hard for me to argue like, does he ever get back there?
So I will say, one, you're right. I don't like this at all. Two, that being said, you're right in the sense that, what were we saying after we lost Marshy and company? We need scoring, and we need scoring on the wing. Centers are set. We need wingers. So that makes sense. He's probably the best, or has the most potential of all the wingers available. My first thought, and I'm not going to say never because every time I say never, this team just does it. So I'm not even going to go in that direction. Not going to say never. What I will say is what I think would make management hesitate. 8 million plus cap hit.
They would have 50% would have to be retained.
So it'd be even then 4 million. I don't think they would be okay with that. I think it would have to be a three-way deal with double retention, get them down to 2. And even then, you're still giving up something. You're still giving up a roster player to make the cap space. And then you're paying assets to not one, but 2 teams to pay for the cap. So to me, we're in a position where I don't know if we have enough assets to do that. And then on top of that, it's, the attitude. It's the attitude problem.
Yeah.
His whole career, it seems to have followed him. And I'm not here to, put guys down for being in the player assistance program or anything. But before all that, his reputation was kind of being spoiled, demanding first line / first power play minutes in Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. He has a habit of, a reputation for not taking practice too seriously, not showing up at all, preferring to stay at home and play Fortnite. So yeah, I don't know. That again, the talent is there and the goal scoring is there, but can you really imagine Patrik Laine underneath Bruce Cassidy? Anthony Mantha got scratched pretty quick.
That's true, but Anthony Mantha has never been a 20-plus consistent goal scorer. Or 30.
Also true.
Yeah.
Also true.
He doesn't have Anthony Mantha never had the talent that Patrik Laine has as a goal scorer. But like I said, that's kind of like an up in the air one. There's gonna be a lot of bidders for Patrik Laine. It's not gonna just be us. It's not gonna just be Colorado or Edmonton.
Even that I disagree. I'm like, I think there's gonna be no bidders for Patrik Laine.
That's what I mean. I think
Columbus is going to be desperately trying to find bidders, and there'll be none coming to play.
That means they're going to have
two months from now, be like, all right, the starting lineup for the Columbus Blue Jackets, Patrik Laine, come on down.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's going to be there. There might not be people lined up to take them, but it's gonna have to be at a reduced price. Like everybody with the Mitch.
Like we might be able to twist their arm.
Yeah, we or anybody might be able to twist their arm and say like, hey, no one's offering you something like this. It might not be great. It might be Brendan Brisson and a second-round pick and Ben Hutton, but it's better than nothing. Don't you want retain 50%? Don't you want some value out of it? Or
I'm just trying to think of cap hits that we could dump, and honestly,
I
feel like the higher ones are guys that we would either want to keep or have no movement clauses.
Mm-hmm. But I do agree there would have to be a third team involved, because if they do retain 50%, that gets them down to 4. Right now we have 1.8, something like that, 1.5 to get them down to 2, and then send a player back like a Brisson or something, which covers that that money. We're gonna have to send a pick or a player somewhere else.
Exactly. Pay 2 teams.
Yeah, but usually that third team that pays to retain $2 million for 2 years is a team that, like a Utah, be like, oh, we just want a second-round pick or third-round pick. But then again, you get into the business of all your picks are going to be gone for the next few years.
Exactly, and we're already kind of there. I will say that if we do a deal like that, he stays, and it turns out he hits,
clicks, and
he's mentally in a good place, and he gets along with everyone, fits in. That would be great. And then arguably, when it comes time to re-sign him, we can be like, hey, Patrick, $8 million,
a little sweet. You want to come down?
Yeah.
Let's
meet at 5. Let's meet at 4.7.
We just gave Jack 11. We can't give you that much money.
Exactly. Let's do maybe we'll do a 4x4.
Yeah, because I think the hard part is he's a UFA not next season, but the season after that, and that's the same year that Eichel is. So that gets hard. I think the only way we are able to make that trade work is if there's a deal in place for Eichel already, to sign an extension.
The cap hits are known.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, this all maths out because we'll have money for Eichel, we'll have money for Theodore, we have money for Hill if Hill plays a good season. All the math kind of works out. We can fit Laine in for X amount of money. And it's also to say, I love Mark Stone, but his years are slowly getting to the point where he might have a permanent back injury and go away of Shea Weber.
I mean, he is 32 and he hasn't played a full season in 3 years. So.
He's got a back like an 85-year-old
and a spleen
and no spleen
spleen.
Did he get it removed or is
it? I don't. They didn't specify. Can you get your spleen removed?
You can get your spleen removed.
I don't know if they got it removed. I think. From what I Googled, because you best believe I spent a few months Googling spleen injuries.
Being a spleen expert.
I don't think you need to remove it. You just need to rest it for weeks,
it's even months.
Even months.
It's like one of those organs that can regenerate if you give it enough time.
Yeah, you just have to not move.
Great. That's perfect.
Little movement is possible.
Perfect for a hockey player.
Naturally.
But yeah, there's some names I had listed out. I know.
Well, can we got a few minutes left here. Can I throw a big one at you?
Yeah,
the one that we've been attached to because, as you know, Vegas is always chasing those big contracts, dog. Those big players.
This one.
Yeah, me neither. But I think it'll be fun to talk about.
Mitch Marner.
Last
I heard was that they were working on an extension for him. Is what I heard last time on watching the Steve Dangle
I was going
podcast.
to say, I know that because I've been seeing Steve Dangle
freak the fuck out.
ride in the street, which I don't blame him.
I wouldn't extend him either.
What kind of hellish Twilight Zone do true Toronto fans live in?
Like, first of all, the deal that he was signed to was atrocious. Mitch, you're a good player.
Folks.
He's a great hockey player.
He's an elite player. He's elite.
He's not an $11 million hockey player.
I had him on maybe not my first line, but I had him in my top 6 in my Team Canada.
Yeah,
he's elite.
He's elite
guy.
But the contract
he's two-way play.
Yeah,
I think he's gonna win
a Selke.
Yes,
maybe the contract he'd be up for next season would be an $11 million contract, but the contract that he signed then 6 years ago for $11 million,
insane.
When he was 21 years old.
One thing Vegas hasn't done:
signed a 21-year-old.
Get literally bent over by their RFAs.
Like, insane to me when that happened. Just can't believe it. It's kind of insane he got paid that much for being so young at the time. And then, I mean, he had points and everything. You could say he had points, but like that was an insane.
The talent was obviously there. I don't think anyone's disputing the talent.
But then, arguably, the talent that was similar in Jason Robinson got paid less.
Well, yeah, it's because Jim Neal's not a fucking
idiot. Not an idiot. Whereas
that's why he won GM of the Year 2 years in a row.
I know we said Kyle Dubas is an idiot, but at the time, kind of an idiot.
He was also very young.
Yeah,
inexperienced.
But
that's an excuse.
The contract, like I said, if that contract, $11 million was signed this next season, normal for Mitch Marner. I could see that.
Perfectly said. If that's his big number with the cap going up after the career that he's had, even then 11's kind of
crazy.
Rich. I would say like 10.
Yeah, because Eichel's getting paid 10. He's probably going to get a raise for the next contract. Not a ton.
But Eichel's
a bona fide. He's a
Stanley Cup champion.
Stanley Cup champion.
Get not a Vezina. I think he'll get a Selke eventually.
I hope so. I hope he
at least finish in the top 3 voting.
I think so. But like they're the superstars are there. They're getting paid around that amount of money. Kind of insane. Like, let's see. We do have just pulling up the highest paid players in the league this next season. Mitch Marner is number 12 at 10.9. He's getting paid more than, well, obviously Jonathan Huberdeau is not fair. That's terrible. He's getting paid more than Jack Eichel, Alexander Barkov, Sergei Bobrovsky, Tyler Seguin, Sebastian Aho, Zach Rowinski, Matthew Tkachuk, Charlie McAvoy. So superstars.
Mm-hmm.
Nikita Kucherov, Jamie Benn.
I'm a little shocked that Rasmus Dahlin makes that much.
He got his big extension a year ago, $11 million at only 24 years old.
Well, that's what Buffalo does. They're kind of similar in that way. Just throw the wallet at these young players and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case scenario, you'll just rebuild again in another 4 years.
Exactly. So he's getting paid way more than he should be getting paid. Like you said, maybe a $10 million player. Obviously getting paid more because he's in Toronto. But like the deal to send him anywhere, I mean, I know they've been quote unquote shopping him, but I don't think you can shop somebody that like your asking prices from what I've heard is as insanely astronomical.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if they're even shopping him because, like you said, I think they're closer to an extension.
Which I think
an extension sounds more likely.
Like with anything. What money? Like they don't have anything.
That's what's so hilarious is every fucking year, and I'm sorry, Toronto fans, doubt you're listening, but every fucking year the narrative is we need a change. We need a change. This core is not getting it done. The core is not getting it done. It's the same thing every year.
Yep.
And every time one of them comes up for an extension, they're like, well, obviously we got to extend him. I mean, you can't just let that guy walk. You can't trade that guy. Who do you even trade for?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the opposite of how McCrimmon and how Bill Zito of Florida run things. To me, those are Homer opinion, but to me, those are the two best GMs in the league.
Yeah.
Because Zito, that Tkachuk trade, masterclass.
Yeah.
Everyone thought he was a madman. They said he was a madman, Alex. They said he was a madman.
I mean,
he gave up Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar.
Mackenzie Weegar's been good, but Huberdeau has been awful.
And granted, I think part of that is Calgary just being shit and their coaching being shit and playing a system that does not fit him at all.
I agreed.
Call me crazy, but if you're paying that much for a player, I would want to
design a system around him,
get the most out of him. Like, hey, sorry guys, we're no longer playing this
weird defensive
style
first,
where no one ever joins the rush ever.
Everybody
we're actually
stays
just going to join the rush and have Huberdeau score 120 points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just casually do that.
They'll be better off than where they are now.
Yeah, but he did a masterclass of that. And like we talked about, Jim Neal's been, even the minor trades that he makes look good, and the deals that he's made with Robertson on a bridge deal, Ottinger on a bridge deal,
and then even McCrint. We said this in the last episode. You let go of Marc-Andre Fleury. You let go of Nate Schmidt. You let go of Paul Stastny. Mm-hmm. You let go of Erik Haula. Mm-hmm. How could we do these things? Who would do these things? Well, when you
that wants to win. Yep.
When you're willing to do what it takes to bring in good players
to win a cup instead of sell jerseys and sell tickets.
Yeah.
So for Marner, one I saw was something insane. It was like Marner and like some random roster player. And going back was Pietrangelo and Carlson.
You sent that to me, and I was like, I think Puckpedia got their trade feature out.
Yeah, got the feature.
Started, doing their trades, and I was like, you sent it to me, and it was like, I forgot what site it was, but it was like a legitimate site saying like, what do you think of this? And I'm like, I think that's fucking stupid.
That's the dumbest thing I've read in a long time.
Yeah, and no shade to them, but the Steve Dangle podcast a few weeks ago when they were going over this, they're like, their proposal was Shea Theodore, and I'll admit, we were proposing Theodore trades, right? Mm-hmm. At the time, it was to make cap space for Marsh, so obviously that's done and over with. But some of those arguments still apply. We're strong at D. If you're going to make a move, that's probably where you move cap and ability from. So if it was like Theodore for Marner, like 1-for-1, mm-hmm. and maybe some ancillary pieces, I'm like, okay, I could see that. But no, dog. They said Shea Theodore and Nicholas Hague, and I think like Nick Waugh, and a pick, a high pick, like a second or first. Yep. For Marner, straight up, no retention.
No, yeah. I'm like, first of all, the money doesn't even work. Yeah,
delusional. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Say you don't know anything about the sport you spent 20 years covering without saying you don't know anything about it.
Because that just doesn't happen. Like it's like Vegas would never make that deal.
No one would make that deal.
Like
no one would ever pick up. No contender would pick up Mitch Marner without heavy retention.
Oh yeah. You're at minimum.
And they're not going to give you all those assets either.
Yeah, you're at minimum retaining 50% on Mitch Marner if he's going anywhere. And then you, as the trading person, you better find a second team to also launder some money in that too. Because
who wants Mitch Marner, Alex? Probably a contender, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is something that contenders are usually lacking in?
Cap space.
Exactly. So who's going to take on an $11 million contract for a guy who, yes, he's talented. All the talent in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But who has proven year after year after year that he cannot perform in the playoffs and cannot handle the pressure of the playoffs.
Mitch Marner.
Yeah. I've said this before, but it does crack me up, the mental image of Mitch Marner trying to play Golden Knights playoff hockey. just picture it. We're playing, Dallas or Colorado or LA or Edmonton. Just think of how tense those games are. Just how vile the crowd gets in both buildings.
Yep.
And then just think of what's going on. Petrangelo's in the corner, like backhanding someone until he bleeds.
Yep.
Howden's slashing the shit out of someone. Stones, cross check, pops someone in the mouth.
Yeah.
Cassidy's on the bench screaming and degrading people and pointing his finger and jabbing. Yep. And then just imagine the camera pans over and Mitch Marner's just on the bench, just like shaking and crying like a little chihuahua.
I mean, that's literally what happened in Toronto this last season.
Yeah. Willie Nylander. Stop fucking crying, bro.
Yeah, the only guy that shows up.
His homie had to tell him to man up.
The only guy that shows up in playoff games, William Nylander.
And it's funny because part of me was kind of rolling my eyes at that extension because one, he got overpaid. Two, I'm like, do you keep extending these guys of that core four? I think Austin and Nylander are the ones that deserve it.
100%.
Tavares, gross overpay.
Yep.
And yeah, we just got done talking about
Marner. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, you might even if they want to trade him, yeah, you want to trade him, but you got to be real fucking realistic to think about where he's gonna go.
You basically have to approach it from the point of view of we need cap space now, and we need to change our dynamic now.
Yep.
Not even our dynamic. We need to change the makeup of our team now. I feel like it'd almost have to be a hockey trade. Like, and that's why I do agree. Like, if they wanted Shea Theodore back, I'm like, I could see that as the baseline of the deal because they need defensemen. And I think Shea's obviously we know him as an offensive defenseman. His defense got a lot better under Cassidy.
But then that puts them right back in the same position they would be this year. They're gonna have another asset they're gonna have to pay, and it's not gonna be cheap.
It's not, but it would be cheaper
than
it'd be
Mitch
cheaper
Marner.
than 11, and then it'd be cheaper than whatever he's asking for in this extension.
I could only imagine.
I have a feeling his agent's a prick. His agent's probably asking for like 12 or 13.
Yeah, I mean, what? McDavid gets paid 12.5. Matthews gets paid 13, right?
And then McKinnon's just a hair under Matthews.
Yeah, McKinnon gets 12.6. Panarin is getting paid 11.6.
Panarin's overpaid.
Based on playoff performance. Yeah, based on playoff performance, I think he is.
Me too.
I mean, he had regular season, he was disgusting last year, 120 points in 82 games. Regular season, he's a monster, but he hasn't showed up in the last couple playoffs or really trailed off. He hasn't made his team better in the last couple playoffs, whereas, like, obviously we know McKinnon and McDavid and Pettersson even looked great. I think he earned that 11.6 contract.
Yeah, well, he didn't look good not in the playoffs, but in the regular season he did.
He was
pretty
great
bad in the playoffs. But.
And then Willie Nylander, obviously, he's really picked up. A little bit overpaid, but, he's the only one that's performed in those playoffs.
I think, I forgot who, but someone was comparing Nylander in his cost to Pasternak. I don't think Pasternak makes that much.
Pasternak gets paid 11.25.
Okay. But, Pasta's way better, right?
Yeah, Pasta, let's see, William Nylander had 98 points in 82 games just on the regular season. Pasta had 110 with 47 goals. Nylander had...
And who was Pasta's... Who's the first-line center on that team?
Pavel
Zacha?
Yeah, come on. So he's playing, obviously up to his contract. I would 100% of the time take Pasta over most of those names outside of McDavid and maybe Matthews. But yeah, I think, it's kind of delusional to think that you're going to get a haul back for Mitch Marner when clearly he doesn't like being in Toronto.
Well, that's the thing. I think he does like being in Toronto, but not for those situations. I think he likes being in Toronto because he was born and raised there. He lives there.
It's true. He doesn't like. He's like being a hockey player in Toronto.
He's rich as fuck. Despite all this vitriol that we're seeing online, I think the general populace still loves him. He probably goes to the grocery store and all the boys and girls like, oh my god, can I get a signature? He just bought a nice rich person's house in the Toronto area. He's got a smoking hot wife. I think he's ready to set up shop and be comfortable.
I mean, if they're willing to pay you, why stop them?
I'm sure he doesn't like the press, but that's just part of life in Toronto, right?
If they're willing to pay you, why stop them? And if Brendan Shanahan is essentially calling the shots.
Oh yeah, and I know there's, we talk about Kyle Dubas and we talk about
Brad Treliving.
Yes, thank you. It was very clear to me last year that Dubas got fired because he basically implied publicly like we need to
shake it up.
We need to shake up the core. And then a day later, Brandon Shanahan's like, "You're gone.
Yeah,
bye."
He was like, "You took money out of our shareholders' pockets. How dare you?"
Exactly. And then this year, I think it's clearly the same thing where it's like, at first they were saying, well, we need to change. Well, they obviously didn't change.
Fucking curbed that talk real quick.
And then they got their new, not owner, but like, I don't know, CEO or whatever.
Yeah.
Guys, I only know all this because it's all other fucking podcasts talk about. So I don't know why we're.
No, you get to hear about it too.
Sorry, Toronto sidebar. I do find them intriguing, I guess, from a outside point of view.
From a horrible fucking.
They're kind of the antithesis to Vegas in a way. It's like the opposite, where Bill Foley came to Vegas, realized that he needed to have a good product, didn't stop at anything. He set those unrealistic goals,
and
playoffs in 3, cup in 6.
Yeah, because
he said, I'm not going to just make my living selling jerseys and stuff. Like,
we're winning.
This team needs to be good. We need to get a foothold here.
Yeah, we need to win a cup. Yeah,
we need to take over this valley and get the locals around us.
Yeah, whereas the Leafs are perfect. Of course, two very different lengths of franchise. The Leafs are fucking, what?
They don't have
years
to try.
old, but they don't have to try to get the team around, get the fans around.
They have a built-in fan base.
Yeah, they're already suckling at the teat there, but
they have one of, if not the biggest fan base in the league, and they don't even have to be good.
They're never going to push. Everyone's like, oh, is this going to be their year? No, they're not until ownership decides, oh yeah, we're going to win, instead of like, we're here to sell some tickets and some jerseys. Would you rather have some depth guy, well planned out, group of forwards that have depth and scoring at all 4 lines, or would you rather sell 1 million Mitch Marner jerseys?
Exactly. Like I said, it really is the antithesis. It's
whereas Foley will do anything at all costs, and McCrimmon's willing to do that, kind of be that executioner, be like that, bad guy to do that.
And it's funny because we're the ones that have the reputation for chasing for big game hunting, chasing trade. That's how this conversation started. People saying, well, naturally Vegas is going to trade for Mitch Marner.
I don't think they will. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think McCrimmon wants to deal with that, or wants to know what that cost is. Like, what the biggest trade I think we've ever made is probably the Hurdle and the Hanifin trade, based on like assets. Because the Patrick Eichel trade,
Eichel, Hurdle, and those are probably the 3 big ones.
Like the Patches trade did send back Suzuki, and he turned out to be good, but that wasn't like a lot other than Suzuki.
We also had a treasure chest of assets.
Yeah,
at the time.
And then Eichel, was. But again, you can also say, well, Eichel was Tuck, which he's good, but it was also
he's not a difference maker the way Eichel is.
Yeah, and it was Krebs, and Krebs is basically going to be out of the league. Yeah, and then I think a first round pick. And then the Hanifin and the Hurdle trades, those are probably bigger value trades going back, because obviously they're extremely good. I just don't see us making another trade of that level so soon, where the cupboard is starting to get bare. We don't have the cap room, and also, like you said, Bruce Cassidy doesn't have the time for Mitch Marner.
Yeah, like I said, just picture how gnarly playoffs get for Vegas, and again, just picture fucking Mitch Marner shaking and crying on the bench.
Just the physicality that
you don't have to picture it. Just get that screenshot from last year and Photoshop a Vegas jersey on it.
Yeah, that physicality that happens in Vegas playoff games, and even just not even Vegas playoff games, Western Conference playoff games, the physicality.
I would say playoff games of teams that are going to go far because they realize how to win and what it takes.
And we've seen it where Mitch Marner doesn't forecheck.
Oh no,
he's really just he's a good skill player, and he's good with a stick, and he'll probably win a Selke eventually, but he doesn't hit. He doesn't use the body. He doesn't.
Yeah, and put it to you this way:
when Jack Eichel's like grown his game, he's a skilled guy, but he's still forechecking now. He's down there and hitting. He's in plays, whereas Mitch Marner shies away from contact. And
put it to you this way: if Mitch Marner hit free agency, right? Mm-hmm. We sign him to a deal, and this is keeping in mind that the caps should be going up incrementally. Mm-hmm. If we signed him to like an 8-year deal, and the cap hit was, say, like 8.5 to 9,
I wouldn't.
I would be okay with that.
Yeah,
it would be a little rich in the first year or so. I think it would be worth it because he's a great player. Mm-hmm. And okay, there's right there. There's your first line. There's your first line right wing. first PK, first PP, all that good stuff.
There's your Mark Stone replacement.
Exactly. But I
he
would
is
not
going to get paid over $12 million.
Exactly. And
someone will.
I would
pay
not
him.
give him $1 million now, and just the way the market works, he's getting a raise.
Yep. There's no way he gets less money than what he gets paid right now.
Yeah.
Not a chance. Like, it's just going to go off a name and score recognition. I mean, last year he played 69 games, had 85 points, 26 goals, 59 assists.
So well above a point per game.
Yeah, well above. So, I mean, a good season. So if he had all 82 games, he'd be over 100. But it just... he's one of those guys that score a lot that I think is overpaid. Much like
William Nylander.
Unfortunately, Terry Panarin, obviously Erik Karlsson. I think Jamie Benn's overpaid. I think Tyler Seguin's overpaid.
They've been overpaid.
But yeah, I just don't know. There's no way he's gonna get a pay cut. He's gonna get increased, and with teams getting more money next season again, some dummy, he's not going to care if he's still in Toronto or if he's, in some shit splat, team in the league. He's going to get paid 12 plus.
Oh yeah.
And then that's going to screw Edmonton because McDavid's going to want to get paid 13. Draisaitl is going to be owed $13 to $14 million. Hopefully Jack's got, a great, humbleness about him and doesn't ask for that much money, even though he would deserve it. But
yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not gonna assume that, but I certainly will hope for it.
But in the meantime, I know we're still in that dead time and probably coming back at you with little stories, little things. But in the meantime, stay gold, and thank you guys for tuning in again.
Stay gold. We'll get through it together, folks.